Nobody moved. That's what got me. The whole restaurant. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, soft piano music, and nobody moved. A woman stood at the host stand with her reservation card in her hand, and the man behind the podium looked at her the way people look at something they've already decided doesn't belong. And nobody moved. Let me tell you what happened that evening at Ardmore, one of the most expensive restaurants in downtown Toronto. Because what started as a quiet Tuesday dinner turned into something that none of the 43 people in that dining room will forget for the rest of their lives, including the one who started it. Claudette Ossie had driven 2 hours from Barrie to get to that restaurant. She hadn't told her daughter she was coming. That was the whole point. Naomi had been working 70-hour weeks since taking the executive chef position at Ardmore 8 months ago, and Claudette had watched her daughter shrink, the dark circles, the strained voice on Sunday calls, the way Naomi would say, "I'm fine, Mum," with that particular flatness that meant the opposite. So Claudette had gone online, booked a table under her own name, and decided to surprise her. She was 58 years old. She had driven alone. She wore the navy dress she'd bought for her sister's retirement party. Not flashy, not worn out, just a navy dress on a Tuesday evening. She carried a brown leather purse that she'd had for 11 years, because she saw no reason to replace something that still worked perfectly well. She parked in the underground lot. She took the elevator up. She walked through the revolving glass door of Ardmore at exactly 7:15, 15 minutes before her reservation. The host stand was just inside the entrance, lit softly by a pendant lamp. Behind it stood a man in a fitted black suit. His name tag said Derek F. Host manager. He was perhaps 40, with the kind of posture that comes from believing yourself to be in charge of a very important room. He looked at Claudette, and he looked away. Not the polite glance of someone finishing a task, the specific, deliberate look away of someone who has already made a calculation. Claudette waited. A couple came in behind her, early 30s, the woman in a silk blouse, the man in a blazer. Derek's entire demeanor shifted. He smiled, picked up 2 menus, said, "Good evening, welcome to Ardmore. Do you have a reservation this evening?" The couple said yes. Derek said wonderful. He walked them to their table. Claudette stood at the host stand alone. When Derek returned, he slowed as he approached her. His smile didn't come back. "Can I help you?" he said. The way you say it when you're already hoping the answer is no. "I have a reservation," Claudette said. 7:30, under Ossie. Derek opened the reservation book. He ran his finger down the page without hurry. "I'm not seeing it," he said. "It's OSEI," she said. He looked again. Same pace, same deliberate slowness. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't have anything under that name." Claudette opened her purse and took out her phone. She had the confirmation email. She'd printed it as well, folded it twice, tucked it in the front pocket of her purse the way her mother had taught her to keep important papers. She unfolded it and placed it on the host stand. Derek glanced at it, barely. "Reservations can sometimes fall through the system," he said. He didn't pick up the paper. He didn't look at the confirmation number. "And unfortunately, we're fully committed this evening." Claudette looked past him. The dining room was perhaps half full. "There are empty tables," she said. "Those are reserved for upcoming parties," Derek said. He said it smoothly, the way people say things they've said before. Claudette was quiet for a moment. She'd been quiet her whole life, not because she had nothing to say, but because she'd learned early that in certain rooms the way you respond to an insult is the only thing they'll remember about you. Her mother had taught her that too. "I'd like to speak with the manager," she said. Derek straightened. "I am the host manager. I'd like to speak with someone above that." Something shifted in Derek's face. Not anger, something worse than anger, a kind of cold, polished certainty. "Ma'am, I understand your frustration, but I'm not able to accommodate walk-ins this evening. Perhaps I can recommend." "I am not a walk-in," Claudette said. Her voice was even. She had not raised it. "I have a confirmed reservation that I made 19 days ago. I have the email confirmation in front of you. I drove 2 hours to be here." Derek looked at the paper again. This time he picked it up. He studied it for a moment longer than necessary, as though he was looking for the error he needed to find. He didn't find one. "I'll see what I can do," he said, and he walked away from the stand. He was gone for 4 minutes. Claudette counted. When he came back, he said, "I've spoken to our floor manager and we do have one option available. We have seating at the bar, or I can put you at a table near the kitchen corridor." He paused. Those would be our only availabilities this evening. The bar, or the kitchen corridor. The table by the service entrance, where the noise was loudest and the lighting was worst, and where nobody who mattered ever got seated. 2 tables in the main dining room were empty and had been empty since she arrived. Claudette folded her confirmation email and put it back in her purse. "I'll wait," she said, "by the entrance. For the general manager." Derek's jaw tightened just slightly. "The general manager is unavailable this eve." "I'll wait," Claudette said again, and she sat down on the small bench near the entrance that was meant for guests waiting for their coats. In the back corner of the restaurant at table 11, a woman had watched all of this. Her name was Naomi Osi-Mensah, and she had not moved either. Naomi was 34 years old. She had graduated top of her class from George Brown College, staged at a 2 Michelin-star kitchen in Lyon for 18 months, and spent 3 years at a celebrated restaurant in Vancouver before Ardmore recruited her. She had earned the executive chef title the hard way, the kind of hard that leaves marks. She knew every corner of this restaurant. She knew its suppliers, its plating philosophy, its reservation system, its staff. She had come out to the dining room tonight because one of her sous chefs had kindled her, quietly, through the kitchen pass, that something was happening at the host stand. She had sat down at table 11 with a glass of water and watched. She had watched Derek turn away her mother. She had watched him refuse to look at the confirmation email. She had watched him offer the bar or the kitchen corridor. And now she watched her mother sit on that bench with her hands folded over her leather purse, the brown one, 11 years old, still perfectly good, and wait with the patience of someone who has been made to wait before and knows that the waiting itself is not the end of the story. Naomi didn't move, not yet. Some of you might ask why. Some of you might say that if that were your mother, you'd have been on your feet the moment it started. I understand that. I do. But Naomi knew something the room didn't. She knew her mother, and she knew that Claudette Osi did not want to be rescued. She wanted to be seen, and there is a difference. So Naomi waited too. 8 minutes passed. A different couple came in. Derek was back at the stand, all warmth and welcome. Guided them to one of the empty tables in the main room. Claudette watched this happen. She didn't look away. She didn't make a face. She just watched. A young woman, one of the servers, name tag reading Priya, walked past the bench and slowed. She looked at Claudette, then toward the host stand, then back. She seemed to calculate something. Then she said quietly, "Can I get you some water while you wait?" Claudette looked up at her and smiled. A real smile. "That would be lovely, thank you." Priya brought the water. She didn't say anything else, but she stood near the entrance for a moment longer than her duties required. That matters. I want you to remember that. Derek returned to the stand and saw Claudette still sitting on the bench. Something moved across his face, irritation, or perhaps the beginning of concern. He approached. "Ma'am, I'm not sure how long the wait for the general manager would be this evening. We really are quite." "Derek." The voice came from across the room. Naomi had stood up from table 11. She walked through the dining room slowly. The kitchen staff near the pass watched through the service window. Priya stepped back. A table of 4 near the center of the room turned to look because there was something in the way Naomi Osi-Mensah crossed a room when she had decided something that made people turn. She stopped at the host stand. She looked at Derek for a long moment. Then she turned to her mother. "Mum," she said, "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner." Claudette looked at her daughter. And for just a moment, one single moment, her composure cracked, the way it only cracks when you're in front of someone who loves you completely. She pressed her lips together and nodded once. "You were watching," Claudette said. "I was watching," Naomi said. Then she turned back to Derek. He had gone very still. He knew her name. Of course he did. She was the executive chef. She'd been here 8 months. They'd exchanged pleasantries about cover counts and menu timing and private event logistics. But there was something happening behind his eyes now that looked like arithmetic, a rapid, desperate kind of arithmetic where the numbers don't add up. "This is my mother," Naomi said. "She made a reservation 19 days ago. She drove 2 hours. She showed you the confirmation email." She paused. "And you offered her the bar or the kitchen corridor." Derek opened his mouth. Naomi said, "I want you to think very carefully about the next thing you say." The room was quiet, not the restaurant quiet of soft music and clattering cutlery, a different kind of quiet. Derek said, There may have been a misunderstanding with the system." "There was no misunderstanding with the system," Naomi said. "She wasn't loud. She was precise. There's a difference, and it's everything. I've reviewed the reservation log from this week. My mother's booking was in there correctly. I can show it to you right now if you'd like, but I think you knew that." Derek said nothing. "I want to understand," Naomi said. "What was it? The dress? The purse? The fact that she came alone?" She let the question sit. "Because she has the same last name as me, and you've seen my name on every menu in this restaurant for 8 months, and somehow you still couldn't find her reservation." The silence stretched. At the table of 4 near the center, a man in his 60s put down his fork. Derek's face had gone the color of the white tablecloths. "Monsieur Osi Mensa, I assure you." "My mother will be seated at table 4, Naomi said. "The window table. The one we reserve for guests of the house." She said it without checking with anyone because she didn't need to. She was the one who decided what happened in the room behind the kitchen door, and everyone in that building knew it. "And I'll be cooking for her personally this evening." She looked at Derek one more time. "We'll speak tomorrow morning," she said. 9 o'clock. HR will be present." She turned to her mother, held out her arm. Claudette stood. She smoothed the front of her navy dress. She picked up her brown leather purse, and she took her daughter's arm, and they walked together through the dining room, past the white tablecloths and crystal glasses, past the table of 4, where the man with his fork still hadn't picked it back up, past the server named Priya, who was holding a water glass and blinking fast, and they sat down at table 4, the window table, where the light from King Street made everything glow gold. Here is what Naomi did not do. She did not take out her phone and record Derek. She did not post anything that night. She didn't call a food writer or tip off a restaurant reviewer or craft a statement for social media. Some of the kitchen staff expected her to. There was a sous chef named Marcus who'd been with her from Vancouver, and he told her afterward that he'd been waiting for the video to appear online. It didn't. What Naomi did instead was this. The following morning, she sat across from Derek and the HR coordinator in the small boardroom on the 2nd floor with a printed copy of the reservation log, the confirmation email her mother had forwarded her, and a written account of the evening that she'd typed out at 11:30 the night before. She was specific. She was factual. She did not use words like racist or bigot, though the people in that room were free to draw their own conclusions from the sequence of events she described. She simply said what happened, in the order it happened, with the documentation to support it. Derek was let go that afternoon, but Naomi didn't stop there. She put together a proposal for the restaurant's ownership group, a hospitality and respect review of every front-of-house process, from host training to table assignment protocol. She identified 3 other servers who had flagged similar incidents to her over the past 8 months, incidents she now wished she had done more about sooner. She brought in a consultant. She also wrote a personal note to Priya, the server who had brought her mother a glass of water. She told her that she'd noticed, that it mattered, that the smallest gestures of decency in the middle of indecency are not small at all. Priya kept that note. On the drive back to Barrie that night, Claudette called her sister. "How was the food?" her sister asked. Claudette was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, the highway lit up in the dark, the long, flat stretch north of the city, familiar and steady. "It was wonderful," she said. "Naomi made me a tasting menu. 7 courses. She came out between everyone. And the restaurant itself?" Another pause. Claudette watched the headlights of the cars going south. "Someone tried to turn me away," she said. At the door, her sister was silent. "He didn't know," Claudette said. "That the chef was my daughter. What did you do?" "I waited," Claudette said. Her sister made a sound that was halfway between a laugh and something else. "You always wait. I've learned," Claudette said. "That waiting is not the same as losing." She drove for a while in the quiet. She didn't need me to save her, Naomi had told Marcus the next morning when he asked about it. She needed me to witness, and then to act when it was time. Marcus had thought about that for a long time afterward. He said later that it changed something in how he understood power, the difference between the kind that announces itself at the door and the kind that sits quietly and waits until the right moment, and then says, "I will be cooking for her personally this evening," with the kind of calm that makes the entire room understand who was in charge all along. The couple who had been seated at the center table, the ones where the man had put down his fork, they left a note with the bill that night. Priya found it under the card reader. It said, "We saw what happened. We should have said something sooner. We're sorry we didn't." Naomi read it. She put it in the same drawer as her own note from Claudette, the one her mother had tucked into her coat pocket on the way out that evening, written on the back of the confirmation email in her clean, precise handwriting. "My reservation was valid all along. It just took the right moment to be honored. That's all most things need." I think about that note sometimes. The confirmation email Claudette had printed and folded and carried in her purse for 19 days. Prepared, as she always was, even when she shouldn't have needed to be, and then turned over and written something on the back of. As though she'd known from the moment she booked the table that the paper would find a second use. As though even in the anticipation of being doubted, she'd left room for a different kind of story to be written. I think about Priya and her glass of water, how small it seemed, how much it wasn't. I think about the couple who put down the fork and didn't say anything in the room, and then wrote the note at the end, and how they'd had to sit with what they'd done and not done for the length of a full dinner. I think about Derek and what he saw when he looked at Claudette Osei and decided she didn't belong. What gap existed in him? Not just the cruelty of it, but the sheer wrongness of the calculation. That you can look at a woman with a confirmed reservation and a printed email and 11 years of good leather and decide she hasn't earned her place. And I wonder how many dining rooms, how many host stands, how many everyday moments there are where someone is handed the bar or the kitchen corridor and doesn't have a daughter in the back who owns the kitchen. What happens to those people? What did you do the last time you watched something happen and didn't move? I'm not asking to judge. I'm asking because I think you know the answer, and I think it matters. If this story stayed with you, let it sit for a little while before you scroll away. And if you know someone who needs to hear it, someone who has ever been handed the kitchen corridor when they deserved the window table, share it with them. We'll be back with another story soon. Until then, be the person who brings the water,